The morning began like any other, until one small moment shattered the illusion of normal. A bell chimed above the cafe door as a man in a faded gray jacket stepped inside, his shoes carrying the dust of a long walk. He looked tired, ordinary. No one turned to notice him. No one whispered his name. But this was no ordinary customer. This was Marcus Hale, a man whose name was printed on every cup, every receipt, every paycheck in the building. The billionaire who owned this entire coffee chain stood there disguised as a traveler, wanting to know what his world looked like from the bottom. He didn't come to drink coffee. He came to see truth. The cafe was alive with morning chaos, machines hissing, cups clinking, customers scrolling on phones, barking orders like commands. Behind the counter, a young black waitress named Alana moved like calm water through a storm. Her apron was stained with espresso and sugar, her hair tied back neatly, her hands moving fast but precise. She smiled at everyone, the rude, the kind, the indifferent. It wasn't the kind of smile people gave for tips. It was real. There was something about her that felt different, something quiet and grounded in a room built on hurry. Marcus watched her before ordering. He noticed how the manager, a tall man with slick hair, leaned on the counter, pretending to help while giving orders that made no sense. Alana didn't argue. She just did the work. When Marcus reached the front, she greeted him with that same warm tone she gave every customer. "Good morning, sir. What can I get started for you?" He hesitated. It had been years since anyone had called him sir without an agenda. He mumbled, "Just a black coffee." She nodded, tapping the order into the register. He handed her cash, deliberately short $1, testing her. She didn't flinch. She opened the drawer, pulled the missing bill from her own tip jar, and said, "There we go. Exact change." Marcus blinked, confused. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "You'll get it back." She smiled. "It's okay. Coffee first, fairness later." Then she turned to prepare his drink, leaving him standing there, wondering if she had just handed him a lesson in a sentence. He sat at a corner table near the window, pretending to scroll through his phone, watching. He saw how customers treated her, like air. A man in a suit snapped his fingers when his muffin took too long. A woman sighed loudly when Alana forgot the whipped cream. Through it all, she didn't lose her rhythm. Not one curse word. Not one roll of the eyes. Just small breaths and a kind of silent grace that didn't belong in a place like this. When his coffee came, Marcus decided to push a little harder. He frowned and said, "This took a while." She paused. "Sorry about that, sir. We're short-staffed today." "Short-staffed?" he muttered, pretending to be annoyed. "Maybe the company doesn't care enough to hire properly." Her eyes flickered up, just for a moment. Maybe the company just forgot what it used to care about. Her tone wasn't sharp. It was soft, almost sad. That's when he asked her a question meant to corner her. "And what do you think that was?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she slid the cup toward him, eyes meeting his, and said 3 words that landed like thunder. "I love vision." Time froze. The machines hissed behind her, someone laughed across the room, but Marcus heard nothing. The words hit him harder than he expected. He looked down at the cup in his hand, the same cup that once carried his company's slogan, "We love vision." It had been his dream, his mission, his pride, until it all became about profits and shareholders. The company still used the slogan, but it had lost its soul. Yet here, from the mouth of a tired waitress earning minimum wage, came those same 3 words, honest, pure, alive. His heart thudded in his chest. How could she know? How could someone who'd never met him repeat the very phrase that started his empire? He wanted to ask her what she meant, but his throat closed up. He just stood there, gripping the coffee cup, watching her move back to the next customer as if she hadn't just changed the air around him. The manager's voice broke through his thoughts. "Hey, you gonna move along, or what?" Marcus blinked. "What?" The man pointed toward the door. "You've been standing there 10 minutes. Other people need space." Marcus muttered an apology and shuffled toward his table again. The manager smirked, not recognizing the man who signed his paycheck. From his seat, Marcus studied Alana a little longer. Every movement told a story, how she leaned forward to listen when someone spoke softly, How she slipped a muffin to a kid whose mother couldn't afford it, how she said, "Thank you," to people who didn't even look up. She carried herself like someone who had every reason to be bitter, but refused to be. That strength, quiet, unshakable, unsettled him. He took a sip of his coffee. It was perfect. The flavor was strong, smooth, balanced. But all he could taste was guilt. Guilt that his company, his leadership, had built a system where people like Alana had to work twice as hard to be seen half as much. He thought about the executives who bragged about community initiatives while cutting corners on staff pay. He thought about the slogan meetings, the fancy presentations, the fake smiles. He felt sick. Then Alana walked past his table, wiping a spill from the counter, and their eyes met again. She didn't look away. For a moment, he saw something in her, not pity, not fear, but recognition. Like she knew exactly who he was without needing to say it. He looked down quickly, pretending to text, his pulse hammering. Could she tell? Could she see through the disguise? Before he could think of what to say, a group of loud customers entered, drawing her attention away. She went back to work, and Marcus stayed longer than he should have, sipping slowly, letting every sound and stare sink in. Around him, people lived their ordinary lives, unaware that the man in the corner was learning the most expensive lesson of his career from a woman making $12 an hour. When he finally stood to leave, Alana was at the register again. "Thank you," she said with that same warm tone. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came. He just nodded and slipped a tip into the empty jar, not cash, but his business card, folded in half, hidden under $1. He hesitated by the door, watching her one last time. Then she looked up again, eyes soft, and for a second, he thought she smiled just for him. Not the smile of a waitress to a customer. The smile of someone who saw more than what stood before her. He walked out, the morning sun blinding, the sound of her voice echoing in his mind. "I love vision." He didn't know why those words hit so deep. Maybe because he'd built an empire on them. Maybe because he'd forgotten what they meant. Or maybe because, for the first time in a long time, someone wasn't impressed by his power. They reminded him of his purpose. As he walked down the busy street, coffee still warm in his hand, Marcus Hale realized this wasn't just a morning test. It was the beginning of a reckoning he didn't see coming. Marcus didn't leave right away. He told himself he'd only stay for a few minutes, finish the coffee, and go, but something in that cafe held him there. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe guilt. Maybe the echo of those 3 words that refused to leave his mind. "I love vision." He sat in the same corner, pretending to scroll through his phone, while his eyes quietly followed Alana's every move. She moved with rhythm, with care. Every order, every thank you, every smile, all done like it mattered. But under that calm, he could see something deeper. Her shoulders carried a weight that no one else seemed to notice. The morning rush thickened. Orders piled up, customers grew impatient, and the air buzzed with tension. A man in a suit slammed his hand on the counter because his almond milk latte wasn't hot enough. "Is that so hard?" he barked. Alana apologized softly, took the drink back, fixed it, and returned it with the same calm tone. "Thank you for your patience," she said. No trace of sarcasm. No edge. Just grace. The man grunted and walked away. Marcus clenched his jaw, feeling anger rise inside him, not at Alana, but at the way she had to swallow disrespect just to survive another shift. Then the manager appeared again. His name tag read Tony, but Marcus remembered approving his promotion last year after a board recommendation. Now he watched the man's real behavior unfold. Tony leaned against the counter, sipping free coffee, whispering sharp orders to Alana. "Smile more, it looks better for tips," he said, tapping her shoulder. "And make sure the register balances this time, okay? We had mistakes last week." The way he said mistakes made Marcus's stomach turn. Alana didn't argue. She just nodded, her lips pressed tight. Marcus watched Tony walk off and snatch a $5 bill from the tip jar, slipping it into his pocket like no one saw. But Alana saw. And she said nothing. She simply kept working. That silence, that strength, felt louder than any confrontation. It was the silence of someone who'd learned that speaking up cost more than it paid. Marcus could feel his disguise becoming heavier. Every sip of coffee tasted bitter. He looked around the cafe, The slogans on the wall, the posters about community, care, vision. He'd approved every one of them, thinking they made a difference. But down here, those words were wallpaper overwrought. He saw the gap between his world and hers, the boardroom versus the break room, and realized he had built that gap. A few minutes later, another test came to him, not planned but instinctive. When Alana passed his table to wipe it down, he said quietly, "Do you like working here?" She looked at him, a bit startled, then smiled politely. "It's fine." "Just fine?" he asked, pretending to sound curious. She paused, looked at the counter, then back at him. "It's a job. Some people treat it like family. Others just treat it like business. Depends who's upstairs, I guess." Marcus's heart stung. He asked, "And if the people upstairs don't care?" That's when she said it, steady, not angry, just true. "If the people upstairs care, they'll show it down here." She wiped the table once more and walked away before he could reply. He sat there frozen, her words cutting through every layer of comfort he'd built over the years. He thought about the meetings filled with talk of culture and values, the endless metrics, the pride he'd taken in seeing profits rise. None of that reached down here. The people at the bottom never saw the kindness the top bragged about. The truth was simple. They didn't need another slogan. They needed decency. Just then, a commotion broke out near the register. A mother with 2 kids argued about her bill. Something had been overcharged. Tony appeared again, annoyed. "It's what it says on the screen, ma'am. You can check the receipt." The woman's voice trembled. "I can't afford another $2. Can you please fix it?" Tony rolled his eyes, muttering under his breath, "Always something." Alana stepped forward gently. "Tony, I can handle it." "No," he snapped. "You can't keep giving away food like you own the place." But Alana didn't back down this time. She quietly voided the charge, handed the woman a corrected receipt, and said, "You're good, ma'am. Have a blessed day." The mother smiled in relief, whispering, "Thank you." As she walked out, Tony's face turned red. "We'll be talking about this later," he hissed. Alana just nodded, no fear in her eyes. Marcus felt something shift in him. He had seen courage before, on battlefields of business, in high-stakes deals, but never like this. This was moral courage. The kind that didn't need an audience. He realized that in his world, people performed kindness when cameras were on. But Alana lived it, quietly, in the shadows of greed. As the cafe began to calm, Marcus rose, walked to the counter, and ordered another coffee, not because he wanted it, but because he needed a reason to speak again. "You work hard," he said softly as she poured his drink. "Hard doesn't always pay the bills," she replied, smiling faintly. "But it keeps me human." Her answer landed heavy, simple, and unforgettable. Tony reappeared, interrupting. "Hey, make sure to clean that corner before you clock out. And don't forget, your till was short yesterday." Marcus glanced at Alana's face. No protest. No anger. Just quiet acceptance, and maybe a tiny flicker of exhaustion that she quickly hid. He wondered how many times she'd had to swallow moments like this just to keep her job. When Marcus left, he noticed something missing. The tip jar. It was gone. Vanished from the counter. He turned back and saw Tony laughing with another worker near the back, the same $5 bill sticking out of his pocket. Marcus's jaw tightened. He wanted to march over, reveal himself, fire the man on the spot. But he didn't. Not yet. Not like this. Because this test wasn't over. Not for them, and not for him. Outside, the sky was turning pale gold, the city waking up around him. He stood by the glass window, watching Alana move behind the counter, still smiling, still serving. Every gesture, every glance told him she deserved far more than this. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something unfamiliar burning in his chest. Shame. Shame for building a company that allowed this kind of quiet injustice. Shame for mistaking slogans for soul. He took one last sip, and the taste felt wrong, like bitterness disguised as success. In that reflection on the glass, he didn't see a billionaire anymore. He saw a man pretending to care about people he'd never met. And in that moment, he understood something he'd never dared to say aloud. Power means nothing if it doesn't reach the hands that serve it. Marcus walked away slowly, the morning crowd swallowing him up. But with every step, those words echoed louder. If the people upstairs care, they'll show it down here. He wasn't sure yet how, but he knew one thing: before this was over, he would find a way to show it. Because that waitress, the one who smiled through silence, had just reminded a billionaire what humanity was supposed to look like. That night, the cafe looked different. The morning chaos was gone, replaced by a quiet hum of machines and the faint scent of coffee beans resting after a long day. The lights were dim, the floors half cleaned, and the sound of brooms brushing against tile filled the air. Alana was still there, wiping down the tables one by one, her movements slow but deliberate. She didn't know that outside, under the soft glow of a street lamp, a black car had just pulled up. The man who stepped out wasn't wearing a worn jacket this time. He wore a dark tailored suit, sharp, clean, and unmistakably expensive. His nameplate watch caught the light as he walked. The billionaire had returned. When Marcus entered, the few remaining staff froze. No one expected him there. The manager, Tony, nearly dropped a stack of cups. "Mr. Hale, sir. We didn't know you were." Marcus raised a hand, stopping him. His voice was calm, but carried a gravity that made the air still. "It's fine. I just wanted to see how things close here." His tone wasn't angry, but it wasn't casual either. He scanned the room and his eyes found Alana, standing near the back, her rag in hand. She didn't react like the others. No panic, no fake smile. Just a quiet nod. "Coffee's over, sir," she said softly, the same word she used for any late customer. There was no flattery, no fear. Marcus almost smiled. "You don't remember me, do you?" he asked, stepping closer. The staff looked confused. Alana studied him for a long second, her gaze steady. "The man who needed to hear 3 words," she said finally. The room went silent. Tony's eyes widened. "Wait, you know him?" She didn't answer him. Her focus was entirely on Marcus. He dismissed the other employees with a simple instruction: "You can all clock out early. I'll handle what's left." They obeyed quickly, and soon the cafe was empty except for the 2 of them, the billionaire and the waitress. Marcus leaned on the counter, unsure how to begin. "You must think I'm insane," he said quietly. A grown man pretending to be a customer in his own business. She kept wiping the counter, her expression unreadable. "People do stranger things to find truth," she replied. He chuckled softly. "That's what I told myself." He took a deep breath. "I came here to test my team. To see how things really run when I'm not watching. But I didn't expect to be the one tested." He paused, his voice heavy with guilt. "I saw how they spoke to you. How they treated you. How that manager, my manager, took what wasn't his." His hand tightened on the edge of the counter. "I thought I was building something good, Alana. A brand that stood for people. For community. But today, I saw what it really became." Alana set the rag down, folded her arms gently, and leaned back. "Sometimes the people upstairs forget to look down," she said. "Not out of cruelty, but comfort." Her tone wasn't accusing, it was calm, almost compassionate. That made it sting more. Marcus looked around the cafe, the posters on the walls. "We love vision. We serve people. We build dreams." "All lies now," he realized. "Those 3 words you said this morning," he whispered. "I haven't heard them said with that kind of meaning in years. I love vision. That used to be my motto. It was supposed to mean something real. Before the numbers took over." Alana smiled faintly. "Maybe you didn't lose it. Maybe you just stopped listening to people who believed in it." He looked up, meeting her gaze, and for the first time in a long while, Marcus didn't see an employee. He saw a teacher. Someone who had survived in a place he had only ever observed from above. "You could have told me off this morning," he said quietly. "You could have ignored me, been rude, or called me out." She shook her head. "Why would I? Power doesn't change who I am. But maybe it can change who you are." The words hit him like a wave. He felt something collapse inside, not pride, but the illusion that money made him moral. He turned away, pacing slowly. "You have no idea how many people I pay to give me advice, to teach me leadership. Not one of them ever said something that real. Maybe they're paid not to, she said simply. Her tone wasn't mocking. It was matter of fact. He stopped walking. The truth of that sentence hung in the air. He looked at her again, really looked this time, the tired eyes, the small burn mark on her wrist, the worn shoes. Everything about her spoke of struggle, and yet she stood there with a dignity that no paycheck could buy. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" he asked softly. Alana nodded once. "Everybody in places like this has. But struggle doesn't scare me. Losing faith does." Marcus felt something stir in him, a mix of shame and admiration. "If I had 50 more people like you," he said, "this company would be unstoppable." She smiled faintly. "Maybe you just need 50 people who care like humans, not employees." The line cut deep. For a moment, silence filled the cafe. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock. Marcus looked down at the counter, tracing his reflection in its polished surface. "You know, I used to work in a place like this. A small diner in Chicago. I was 17, cleaning tables just to make rent. Somewhere along the way, I forgot what that felt like." Alana tilted her head. "Maybe that's why you came back tonight." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the counter. "I don't know if this fixes anything, but it's a start. A scholarship program. For employees who want to study, grow, build something of their own. It starts with you." She looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "I don't need charity, Mr. Hale," she said gently. "I need change." He nodded. "Then that's what you'll get." There was another pause, longer, heavier this time. "You remind me of why I started all this," he admitted. "Not for money. Not for fame. For people like you, who believe in something even when no one else does." Alana took a deep breath. "Then maybe it's time you start building for them again." Her words settled like dust, quiet but impossible to ignore. Marcus realized then that this wasn't just a conversation, it was a reckoning. A mirror held up to the man he'd become. He felt the weight of every decision, every corner cut, every life affected by his comfort. Finally, he straightened his jacket, nodded, and said softly, "You've given me more truth tonight than any boardroom ever has." Alana picked up the rag again, returning to her work. "Then make it mean something," she said. "Words fade. Actions don't." He turned to leave, pausing by the door. The hum of the machines filled the silence between them. "You'll see the difference soon," he promised. "I'll believe it when I see it," she replied without looking up. Marcus smiled. "Fair enough." He stepped out into the night air, the city lights reflecting off his car's windows. As he got in, he took one last look through the cafe's glass. Alana was still there, wiping the same counter she'd been standing behind all day, steady, resilient, and radiant in her quiet dignity. For the first time in years, Marcus didn't feel like a CEO. He felt like a student, humbled by the lesson he didn't know he needed. And as the car drove away, those last words echoed in his mind. "Power doesn't change who I am. But maybe it can change who you are." He knew, deep down, it already had. The next morning broke differently for Marcus Hale. The sunlight didn't just pour into his penthouse, it exposed him. The same glass walls that once felt like a symbol of success now looked more like a mirror reflecting guilt. He sat in silence at his dining table, untouched breakfast beside him, the city skyline stretching endlessly across his view. For the first time in years, the numbers on his phone didn't matter. Not the stock updates, not the sales reports, not even the congratulatory emails from investors. What mattered were her words echoing like a quiet drumbeat in his head. "Power doesn't change who I am. But maybe it can change who you are." He picked up his phone, hesitated, then dialed his assistant. "Cancel the investor meeting," he said flatly. "And tell the PR team to hold all external statements. We're changing direction." The assistant stammered, confused. No one ever canceled Marcus Hale's investor meetings. But he didn't care. Something inside him had shifted, not impulsively, but irreversibly. Downstairs, the corporate offices of Hale Coffee were waking up to routine, the hum of elevators, the click of heels, the chatter of efficiency. But when Marcus walked in that morning, There was a different energy. His presence was sharper than usual, but not angry. Determined. He gathered the executive team into the glass conference room. The skyline reflected behind him like a silent jury as he spoke. "We're shutting down operations for 48 hours, he said. The room went still. All stores, all branches. No sales. No revenue. We're going dark. The CFO, a graying man with a cautious face, blinked. "Sir, that'll cost us." Marcus cut him off. "A lot of money." "I know. But it'll cost us more if we keep pretending we're who we say we are." He let the words hang there. "I visited one of our cafes yesterday. The one on 5th and Maple. I saw how our people are treated. I saw what this company has become beneath the slogans. And I won't build an empire on silent suffering." His words didn't sound like a speech, they sounded like a confession. "We built Hale Coffee on a promise, to serve people, not just customers. Somewhere along the line, we forgot that. So, starting today, every manager will report directly to me about working conditions. Salaries will be reviewed. Every employee will get a paid day off this week, not as a gift, but as respect." The marketing head raised a hand nervously. "Sir, are we doing this for optics? A PR campaign?" Marcus looked her dead in the eye. "No. We're doing it because a woman named Alana reminded me that we stopped listening." Her name dropped like a spark in dry air. The executives glanced at one another. Who was Alana? Marcus continued. "You all know her kind, the ones who open the shop before dawn, who smile when they're exhausted, who deal with complaints they didn't cause. You've never met them because you don't need to. But from now on, you will. Every single one of you will work a shift in our cafes this week. Apron on. Hands busy. Heart open." There was a stunned silence. The HR director finally whispered, "Sir, you can't be serious." Marcus smiled faintly. "That's the first problem. You think empathy is a gimmick." He stood, ending the meeting. Change starts with humility. And it starts now. When he left the room, murmurs erupted behind him. Some thought he'd lost his mind. Others, the quiet ones, felt something awaken. For the first time, the company's walls didn't feel as polished. They felt human. Later that afternoon, Marcus drove back to the same cafe. It looked just as it had, small, ordinary, the kind of place no one expects miracles from. But he wasn't there to inspect. He was there to listen. Alana was at the counter again, tying her apron, about to start another shift. When she looked up and saw him standing there, this time without the pretense, without the disguise, her expression didn't change. No surprise, no fear. Just quiet acknowledgement. "You came back," she said. "I said I would," Marcus replied, stepping closer. "You told me to make it mean something." "I'm trying to." She studied him for a moment. "Trying's a start," she said. "But it's not change." He nodded. "You're right. So I'm here to ask for your help." She blinked, uncertain. "My help?" "Yes. I'm building a new branch. A training center, for leadership that begins from the floor, not the top. I want people like you running it. People who see with heart, not just eyes." Alana's breath caught. "You mean you want me to lead," he finished for her. "To train others to care before they command. To remind us what vision really means." She took a step back, as if weighing the offer not for what it paid, but for what it demanded. "Why me?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Because you were the only one who told me the truth." For a long moment, she didn't answer. The cafe buzzed softly with early customers, the smell of espresso filling the air. Finally, she said, "If I say yes, it won't be easy. I'll hold people accountable, even you." "That's exactly what I need," he replied. A small, rare smile flickered across her face. "Then I'll do it. But don't thank me yet. Change hurts before it heals." He nodded, and for the first time, she saw something human in his eyes. Not wealth, not pride, just gratitude. "I can live with that," he said. Weeks passed, and word spread across every branch of Hale Coffee. Employees who had once felt invisible began to speak up. Managers listened. Schedules were adjusted, wages raised, policies rewritten. But more than that, respect returned. Customers noticed, too. There was a new energy in the air, a warmth that no advertisement could manufacture. And through it all, Alana became a quiet legend within the company, the woman whose honesty sparked a revolution. She didn't seek attention. She simply worked, guided, and reminded everyone why they started in the first place. One evening, months later, Marcus stood in that same cafe again, now renovated, brighter, filled with laughter. On the wall above the counter was a framed plaque with 3 words written in gold. "I love vision." Underneath it, in smaller letters, "In honor of Alana, whose faith rebuilt what ambition forgot." He stood there silently, the noise of the cafe fading behind him. When Alana approached with a cup of coffee, he looked at her and smiled. "You were right," he said softly. "Words fade. Actions don't." She handed him the cup. "And sometimes," she said, "the smallest actions rewrite entire stories." As he took a sip, the warmth spread deeper than the drink. It filled the space that once was cold with profit and replaced it with purpose. Outside, the city lights flickered, unaware that inside this small cafe, a billionaire had rediscovered his soul. And all it took was a woman who refused to let humility go out of style.